Okay, so today we're diving deep into something, you all probably know pretty well. I
Right.
mean, who hasn't heard of Harry Potter?
Right.
But we're not just rereading the books here.
No?
We've got this really insightful analysis. It's called uh, Good versus Evil in Harry Potter, an
Mm-hmm.
in-depth analysis. And it
Mm.
really gets into, like the core of the wizarding world,
Mm.
the whole battle between good and evil, but like on a deeper level.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're the kind of person who likes to learn stuff quickly, but you also want like a deep understanding, especially when it comes to pop culture, then this deep dive is like perfect for you, you know? We're going to unpack all these moral questions in Harry Potter, but it won't feel like, a boring lecture or anything.
Right. No one wants to feel like they're back in school.
Yeah, totally.
So basically today, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to figure out the most important stuff about good and evil in Harry Potter.
Mm.
But like, we're going way beyond just, oh, Harry's good, Voldemort's bad.
Mm.
We're going to talk about Harry and Voldemort's big showdown, of course. But we're also going to look at like all these other characters and how they fit into the whole good versus evil thing and what that means for the whole wizarding world. So to start, like big picture, right? You got to start with Harry and Voldemort. They're like the poster children for good and evil.
Yeah, they're like total opposites, right? And
Yeah.
that contrast is what makes the whole story work. They're the main examples of good and evil in this whole magical world.
And this analysis we're looking at, it does a really good job of explaining like what makes them so different. So
Hmm.
first you've got Harry, who's like naturally good. I mean, he's always compassionate, loyal to his friends, all that.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And the thing is, love, empathy, self-sacrifice, it's not just like a personality quirk. It's almost like actual magic in this world. Like
mm,
Voldemort can't understand it, can't beat it, because he's not capable of those things.
right.
What do you think is the most interesting thing about how Harry's goodness like plays out in the books?
I think it's that it never really goes away. Like even after all the horrible stuff he goes through, he still chooses to be good. He grows up, learns things, but that goodness, it's always there. It's like the core of who he is.
Right.
And then you've got Voldemort, who's like the opposite.
Voldemort is like evil personified. This analysis calls him like the epitome of evil. He just wants power, eternal life, and he doesn't care who he hurts to get it.
Yeah, the analysis actually says that Voldemort's whole philosophy is built on fear and control. It's kind of scary, like
Yeah.
how wanting power so much can just like twist a person, make them do terrible things.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not just a personal fight between them, It's like
Yeah.
this huge battle between good and evil, and the whole wizarding world is caught in the middle.
So we've got this clear difference between good and evil with Harry and Voldemort.
Mm.
But the cool thing about the series and what this analysis really brings out is that it's not always so simple, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. The analysis talks about this idea called moral ambiguity. Basically, sometimes it's hard to say what's right and wrong, and people can do things that are both good and bad.
Right, right.
And that's where Snape comes in.
Oh, Snape. Everyone has an opinion about Snape.
I know, right?
He does all this heroic stuff, risks his life to fight Voldemort. But then he can be so mean and bitter. It makes you wonder, like, is he good? Is he bad? What is he?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, and that's the point, right? He's got these complex reasons for doing what he does. He switches sides, and it makes us think about whether anyone can be purely good or purely evil.
That's a really good point. Like, you can't judge someone based on just one thing they do. It's about everything they do and why they do it.
Totally.
And then you've got someone like Draco Malfoy. He comes from this, like, super dark family, and at first he's a total bully. But as the books go on, you can see he's not sure about all this. Like, he's got a conscience. It's like he's stuck between what he's supposed to be and what he actually feels.
And that's a great example of how things aren't always black and white, right? Like there's family pressure, society telling you what to do, fear. All those things can make it really hard to know what the right thing to do is.
This analysis also talks about redemption. Like, is it possible to come back from doing bad things?
And the books seem to say yes.
Right?
Like Snape, some of the Death Eaters, they get chances to change. So it's not like you're evil forever if you mess up. You can choose to be good, even after doing bad stuff. It's about the choices you make.
And it's not just the characters who are, like, in between good and evil. Even Harry, who's supposed to be this, like, super good guy, he struggles with anger and hate sometimes.
Yeah, even Harry has those moments, right? But that's what makes him relatable. He's not perfect, but he chooses to fight against the bad stuff even when it's hard. And that's something we all have to do, Choose good even when we don't feel like it.
So It's not just individual characters fighting, right? There are whole groups, organizations
Hmm.
involved in this whole good versus evil thing, like the Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, they're like the organized resistance against Voldemort. They represent courage, loyalty, selflessness. They're the people willing to fight for what's right, even if it means risking their lives to protect others.
And then on the other side, you've got the Death Eaters, who are all about darkness and oppression. They're cruel, violent, totally devoted to Voldemort and his twisted ideas.
And that's a really powerful message, you know? Like, what happens when people blindly follow a bad leader, when they let go of their own morals? It's like a warning about how dangerous prejudice and the desire for power can be.
And then there's Hogwarts itself. It's not just a school, it's like this mini version of the whole conflict.
Yeah, Hogwarts is like a microcosm of the whole wizarding world, and everyone there has to choose a side. The whole idea of Hogwarts, like learning, wisdom, community, it's all threatened by Voldemort. It shows how even a place that's supposed to be safe can become part of this battle.
And the Ministry of Magic, too, right? You'd think they'd
Yeah.
be all about good, but it's more complicated than that.
Right, they're the government, but they're not perfect. They've got prejudice, they're not always competent, and they make bad decisions for political reasons. It's like evil doesn't just hide in the shadows, it can be in the system, too.
So we've talked about characters, groups, even the government. But what does all this mean for us, the people listening? What can we learn from all this?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that our choices matter. Like in the books, every decision has consequences, sometimes huge ones. It's a reminder that we all have to make choices, and those choices affect who we are and the world around us.
Yeah, totally. And then there's the whole thing about love being this powerful force. It's not just cheesy, it's like actual magic in Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like when Harry's mom sacrifices herself to save him, that's the ultimate example of love's power. But it's also in Harry's friendships, how he cares about people, his loyalty. The books are saying that love, compassion, empathy, those are the things that can actually defeat evil.
And the series also shows how bad prejudice can be, right? The way they treat werewolves, giants, house elves. It's like a reflection of how we treat people who are different in our world.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for real-world problems. It's a reminder to be open-minded, to fight against discrimination, to be kind to everyone, no matter how different they seem.
And then there's power itself. It's not good or bad on its own. It depends on how people use it.
Exactly. Like, Dumbledore uses his power for good, but Voldemort uses it for evil. Even the Ministry, sometimes they use power the wrong way. So it makes us think about how power works, how it can be used for good or for bad, both in Harry Potter and in real life.
So this whole deep dive, it's not just about some kids' books. It's about good and evil, about how complex they are and how our choices matter. It's about Harry and Voldemort, but also about all the other characters and what they teach us.
Right, it's a much deeper story than people might think. And this analysis really helps us see all those layers.
So we've unpacked a lot today. But here's something to think about. How does all this stuff about good and evil in Harry Potter, how does that make you think about the real world? About your own choices? Like, what are the gray areas in your life? What are the tough decisions you have to make? It's something worth thinking about, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's not always easy to know what the right thing to do is.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.